discussion on our Culture Month study here at the Planting of the Lord Church. And today we're going to have just some brief discussion about a more recent event that has happened in the history of all of us. And that event is actually being captured currently as we speak within a documentary that is on Netflix. And that event is titled We Are the World. Now, you'll remember, for those who were up and going at the time, back in 1984, there was an effort put forth to try to stave off starvation in Africa. Here is the fullness of that. When you would go into the documentary, you would find that this We Are the World effort was something that was birthed through the vision of Harry Belafonte. And the energy that he had behind it is a lot of what we want to discuss today. The energy that he had behind it came after he taking a mission trip of sort to Africa and going through many of the countries that were dealing with severe starvation at the time. There was just a famine that was of unbelievable proportions. And what was happening when he arrived is that it was mostly, the starvation was addressed through these real big bags of rice. I don't know if you all would remember what that might look like. Probably about a 50 to a 75-pound bag of rice. And forgive me, I forgot the exact estimates of that, of the proportions of how many people that they could feed. But one bag of rice, if I'm not mistaken, was the equivalent of 100 meals, full course meals, for all who were suffering under the famine. And you might remember some of the pictures that used to come back here to the United States as a result of the famine. You would see, as a result of starvation, you would see children with very large and raised stomachs. Didn't mean that they were full, but it just meant that the way that they were suffering through the starvation, it just kind of caused their bodies to deform. Harry Belafonte was inspired through the fact that, if I don't want to call it out of turn, but I believe it was U.S. Aid. U.S. Aid was the name of the organization that took the lead in trying to galvanize people to be willing to donate, and so that was pretty much the only thing on the menu was that rice. Okay? When he returned back to the United States, Harry Belafonte had conversations with other black prominent leaders, most of the leaders in the realm of entertainment. And he said, although it's appreciated, and I'm just kind of summing up what he said. He said, although it's appreciated, it seems as if we should be taking the lead in feeding people that look like us. That was his declaration. And from there were some cardinal people that were involved. Again, Mr. Belafonte, Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson, at the time an upcoming shooting star solo artist by the name of Lionel Richie. They all got together and they talked and said it would be great if we could find a way to generate revenue and we can send an effort to feed our own folks, right? From there was birthed the idea of doing a recording and everyone allowing for their participation in the recording. Whatever record label that they were involved in, they would give that record label the ability to promote it, to attach itself to it. But not only that, it would also allow, I think there was a plan. At one time, there was a plan that at a certain time across the country, regardless of the time zone you may have been in, every radio station would play the song. Every radio station would debut the song. And the intent, again, was to galvanize the minds of all the listeners that would cause them to become more benevolent in their giving and in their gifting towards those who were within those conditions, those hungered conditions within Africa. Okay? Thank you all for suffering through me trying to summarize that. But as this particular documentary was released, many of us remember a lot of the rhythm of the song and here and there. But for me, it was interesting, all of the particulars that were involved in bringing this together. So, with that being said, I want to ask first a question to hopefully anybody that did notice that, any one of our panelists that did notice. As you looked at that documentary, was I the only one that didn't know the development of the We Are the World initiative was truly intended to be something that was served from black people? Did anybody else know that? No. No. I didn't either. Okay. I guess my first question to you would be, is that thought process, does it still have placement in our current time? And the thought process that I'm speaking of is, some might say you can define this as far as a people is concerned, let's do for ourselves. That type of energy. Does that still have a place in our society today? Now, I'm saying to anyone that were prepared to respond to that, I guess I'm baking within there, not only does it still have a place, should it be our first option? Who has a thought on that one? Doing for ourselves.
I would say yes. As far as we are a black church in a black community, and I believe that we are called to serve ours, to serve our own, to serve our children and our neighbors and so I would say yes, that's our focus. And I don't think it's anything wrong with having that focus. I believe that we know better than anybody what our needs are. We know how to relate to us. We know how to minister to us, how to talk to us. We know how to grieve with us. We know how to share with us. And because we have firsthand experience, I don't think there's anything wrong with us wanting to serve us.
Okay, here's a trick question. Does anybody disagree with the First Lady? Does anybody disagree? Does anybody, again, if she's saying that you can be called out to serve your own. Okay, you can be. There is such a calling to serve your own, taking advantage of your identity and your familiarization with those who are of your own. Does anybody disagree? Okay, I'll expand that as far as the role of the church It's the role of the church to speak to, and to serve the community in which it is a part of. I got some. Turn your microphones on if you don't say something. Yes, that is our okay. Since I got the yeses out of that, I'm going to push this just a bit further. How does that apply to Jesus said, he said to those who were following him at the time that he was here on the earth with, which were the Orthodox Jewish folks. He said, go ye into Jerusalem and into Samaria and to the uttermost parts of the earth. Okay? That's what he said. Does that mean that we should not have exclusive emphasis as far as the reach and the intent of who it is we go to serve? Yes, sir.
I believe we should serve everybody, but if you're living in a certain community that's more predominantly you, then you focus more on your people. But if it's other people there, don't leave them out. You know, because some people will have that mindset, oh, they not us, they not, so we ain't worried about them. But yes, he wants us to worry about everybody.
Keep the microphone for a second. What are your thoughts, and I invite anyone, whatever the deacon would say, I invite anybody else to chime in on it behind it. What are your thoughts on doing outreach beyond your community? Let me be clear. Your specific focus is outside of your community. Let me try that one more time. Your specific focus for whatever the initiative may be is not going to land within the boundaries of your community, but it's going to go abroad. What are your thoughts on that?
So you're saying the work that we're going to do is going to go abroad instead of in the community that we're in?
Yes, sir.
So what are we doing about the community that we're in?
That wasn't the question. I'm asking, what about those that when you put it together?
Well, I feel personally you got to focus on where you at first before you can go abroad. That's me.
Okay.
How can I go outside? Like they always say, how you going to take care of everybody else and your home is raggedy? My opinion.
All right. Sister Katrina?
I'm looking at it as we do, well, you're going to have to go outside. Community, just like going to help the homeless. You may not have you might not have any homeless in your local community. So you may have to go abroad, just to reach out to those, even though they're not part of your community. You still may have to go out abroad. That's not saying that you're not helping your community that you're in. It's just that you may not see that in your community. Their church, and think about the pantries that are out there now. A lot of those pantries, a lot of people that go to those pantries are of color.
Most of those pantries are what?
Or of the people that go to the pantries.
Yes.
Are of color, but a lot of the pantries that are out there are of Caucasian race. They, do a little bit more. So sometimes you do have to reach out, and some of those churches are not in the communities.
All right. Yes, sir.
I get that point too. And then I also feel like a lot of times we jump to go over here and the people that are serving with us are suffering in ways that we don't even take care of. That's right here in our church. But then we're so ready to go, we're going to go feed the homeless. And this family of 10 can't even eat all week. But we praising and we shouting together, but ain't nobody even thinking about we might need to do something for them.
Fair. Are you suggesting, you didn't say it, but are you suggesting that we have, we grandstand? Is that kind of,
Kinda, yeah.
okay.
Because, I mean, you know, we want to be seen in the public taking care of, are we out here and we doing this and we doing that? But right here, where you at in your home churches, it's a lot of need that they don't even meet.
Yes. And a lot being baked in within this. Now, I invite everybody else to dive in, but I'm watching the clock. Be sure you turn it off when you. The question itself was, should we, from the response that Sister Jackie gave, should our focus be serving people as far as ministry is concerned, serving people within our boundaries, whatever that boundary is, before doing service abroad? Because I will say this, I do remember when the We Are the World initiative was going forward, there were people within our communities that was all like, oh, okay, y'all want to go and feed people all the way across the waters and all of that, when we got folks living right here in the hood that's suffering. That's sedity. Now, I remember that. So my question, sir, was, what is our role as far as our reach?
I would
Be sure that's on. Be sure that's on. Well, you might want to take it out. Thank you.
I would say that initially that we should focus on inward. Now, there's going to be some situations where some of those efforts will take you out of the community, but your focus should be within the community first. You want to focus on that, and then those situations that require you to go outside of that, that's okay, but the main focus should be within the community.
Deacon, so my two deacons said the main focus should be within the community. Okay, all right. Well, I want to progress the conversation just one step further, and I'll add this question to it. Within the documentary that we saw, I think it's safe to say what caused the We Are the World initiative to be as successful as it was is because they made it colorblind. What caused it to be as successful as it was is you had, and let me be clear, the humanity of all people was pulled upon. I mean, you'll remember that the We Are the World, it happened on the end of the evening at the end of the American Music Awards. And if we know anything or have heard anything about the entertainment industry, specifically when it comes to award programs, the night don't begin until the ceremony or the award show is over. And what happened is you had people, a group of people, willing to sacrifice because nobody got paid. One thing that was interesting, even those that were technicians and sound techs, cameramen and all of that, you know, some of them cameramen and sound techs, they handed over invoices saying, okay, well, this is what, and they looked at them like, please, ain't nobody getting paid in here. What are you talking about? So that's a big deal because they put their energy and efforts into something that they weren't going to get the usual return on. But what I wanted to emphasize is the fact that at some point, somebody decided in order for us to make the biggest impact, although we really wanted this to be a reflection of black people stepping up and speaking up on behalf of other black people, they thought and they decided that it would be of a greater effect if we brought other people in. And I'm saying this, I wanted to say this part, just so we're on record. Let's get past the obvious. Everybody that got blonde hair and blue eyes are not the devil. So let's I want that to be emphasized, that this is an example of people tapping into the pure humanity of neighbors and friends. What I ultimately wanted us to discuss today, and I ain't really sure what last question I asked, so I'll say this. What I really wanted us to discuss today, to uncover today, is what efforts are within our reach that would be greater magnified, would become more effective if we reach out to the resources in the community and individuals that we have, of people who aren't, obviously, who may not be members within the planting, people who may not look like us. What are some of the efforts that we could tap into that if we were able to galvanize those outside of the community, that our efforts will become more effective, become more magnified? You understand what I'm saying? What are some of the duties that we, or some of the efforts that we have that could benefit from that? Or maybe even have already benefited from that? Something crossed my mind.
I would say how we came together as far as the pandemic and the COVID pandemic that went on, how I was just thinking as we were talking, how we made our facility available to be used by the community and by all people, and we tapped into that resource, and we serviced all, as Deacon James was saying. We had a white young man come through, and we're here to serve. It's not like, we're no sir.
Mm-hmm.
This is for us. We served all who came for that. And so as things go, needs arises in our community, I think it's important that we tap into whatever that need is at that time, and that we make ourselves available to serve.
Right. Okay. So that was the vaccine initiative that we did. Okay. Vaccine initiative. Any other things that we do? DJ? Yeah.
It's also good. I remember when we were at the old church and how we picked different shelters to work with. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes that's good, too, to see what they need. Because the one thing about it, I feel like, people are going to these shelters. So these are the people that need supplies in order to, instead of always having to go look for the people, these people need. So trying to connect with people that have already set up a foundation, it's good to try to connect with them so that you can be a blessing to them to be a blessing.
So you don't think you have to recreate a wheel?
Correct.
I'm with that. Good one. Any other thoughts there? Yes, sir.
I think we need to look at where society is going as well in terms of technology. As you can see, or as I'm starting to realize as I go into some of these places, a lot of the human resources isn't there, or the human support. As an example, I went into a McDonald's. I had been in a McDonald's for the past 17, 20 years or something like that. Went into one, and I had to place my order through a kiosk. And through that kiosk, it sent the information back to the kitchen, and the kitchen had to pay through the kiosk as well. Like the kitchen help came and they placed my order on the table, and then I was gone. In the past, what I was used to is a bunch of teenagers or adults, and they're taking my order, lines full of people, and it wasn't like that. So that artificial intelligence is where we're going, because as you go into these stores, it's self-help, it's machines doing the work, and if we don't get ahead of that, then all of those jobs that are gone, we're not going to be a community that's going to have the resources to pool. We're not going to be a community that has enough resources to pull together to fight against what's going to be ahead of us. My belief.
That's a very good point, and thank you, man, because you are allowing me to pivot to the close, and the pivot to the close is something that I heard earlier this week, and I confess. Sister Bayless, I confess, what's getting ready to come out of my mouth is not what we say in church. Don't get nervous, Mama. I ain't finna start cussing or nothing like that. I'm just trying to make a point. Yeah, she gave me that look there. I was like, come on out of here. All right. I heard a preacher that, and I've said to you guys before, I'm not one that subscribes to just listening to just any preacher preach. Or in other words, as I believe I've said it to you all, everybody can't preach to me. Now, good, bad, or indifferent, those are just the facts. A gentleman who can preach to me, I was tapped into his Bible study, his virtual Bible study earlier this week, and he shared an idea that I was sort of initially skeptical to receive. Now remember, I'm saying this off of what Deacon Weddington just closed. Deacon James started, and then Deacon Weddington closed about specifically how you said staying ahead of the curve of what's eventual here as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. All right? This brother that I, again, trust the word that comes out of his mouth. Here's what he said. He said, so often in church, we develop ministry according to vision. We develop ministry according to vision, but what we really need to start to consider is culture. Now, when he said that, I'm like, huh? That ain't what they told us since we was in the class. What are you talking about? And what he was saying is, and I'll give some of his examples. If we are to go to, into the uttermost parts of the world and preaching the gospel, we can't go in like Jonah. We can't go in preaching to people with our nose up at them. We can't go in there and say, I don't really want to be here, but God told me to do this, so here it is. You're not gonna get anybody, I don't think, to respond to the great gospel, to the good news that's assigned to come out of your mouth. He used this example. He said, things that we're dealing with nowadays, our forefathers they didn't deal with that kind of stuff. One of the examples that he said is that our forefathers, they didn't have to deal with people identifying themselves as pronouns. Her and he and me. No, it was clearly male. It was clearly female. However, the culture has people's minds to the place that we have to be careful about our presentation, or our presentation will go over their head. It's not about whether or not if their hearts are compliable, but if we present what it is, think of it this way. Now, he didn't say this one. This is mine. He said, he said something that made me think of when Jesus went into Simon's house. He was castigated. They said, oh, he's going in there dining with sinners. They talked about him. I'm talking about the scribes and Pharisees. They talked about him real bad because he went into the sinner's territory or into the sinner's space to minister. I say that to say this, as far as the effectiveness of, and again, we're closing this out from just our evaluation and our examination of the documentary, The Night Pop, what was it? I forgot the name it was, the We Are the World documentary. The concept of stepping out of your own wheelhouse to make a more effective stab or swing at ministry. What can we do? What can we keep our minds and eyes and hearts open towards, that God can take our little and make it much more effective if we would just get beyond how we see things. And I believe that takes a prayerful church. That you got to have a prayer. Yes, you got to be not just the preacher, but even those who are taking the vision and running with it. You got to be prayerful, because there are times in which y'all not going to agree with what the pastor say. I know. The Holy Ghost didn't even have to tell me that. I know there are going to be times and there will be approaches in which even you, in whatever your personal efforts are in the environments that you are in, everybody's not going to understand why you do what you do. But I think this particular documentary showed us that we should always be in a mindset to consider, how can we make what God has birthed in our mind bigger and greater? How can we do it? And usually, as I close this session out, usually if you knew the answer already, that's probably not it. Because Scripture taught us how eyes haven't seen and ears haven't heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man all the things that God has prepared. We don't know it all. But if we would just lend ourselves to the mission itself and let God bless that, we ain't seen nothing yet. We thank you all for joining us today. We have one more session that will be this coming week. We'll be discussing the summation of kind of a little bit of a summary of all that we've hit. And I pray and trust you will join us for our part 5 session. Thank you.